Hola, and welcome to episode 103 of Word to Your Mama. Word to Your Mama is a podcast about the life of a Latina mama, that's me, and the lives of my amazing multicultural tribe. A celebration of shared experiences navigating this dynamic world. There will be special guests, mad laughs, and absolutely no BS. Nah, B is our motto. Segments by the Supernatural Bear, he's 10, going on 40. But other than that, this podcast will be explicit. Please believe it. And why do I have a wider range of dope peeps on here? Is because I come from the music, art, and Web3 industries. Today we have Candy Angel-Diaz. She is a Nepantlera, I always mess that word up, Nepantlera Artivist. Yes. So today we're going to talk about what being an Artivist looks like for her entry into community work via her workshops in Dia De Muertos altar making, the history and frequently asked questions of Dia De Muertos, altar making, and so much more. This is also very special because if you've been around since jump with this podcast, muchísimas gracias. And even if you've only heard one or two episodes, but if you listen all the way to the end, because the format is usually intro, this part, then it's the convo with the person, special guest, then it's the Supernatural Bear Corner, then an outro. Every outro since jump, I've been saying, we reap. I go, we reap. So Candy is part of that amazing group of powerful, magical women. And I met these women when the Supernatural Bear was attending a co-op preschool. So he was like 3. He actually started a little bit earlier, but like around 3 years old is when I met these women. And it's ran by a magical lady named Teacher Bonnie. And I went in thinking like, okay, it's a co-op, so I got to do stuff and I got to interact with people, but I'm in and I'm out, right? It's 3 days a week. I'm in and I'm out. I don't need friends. I got my friends. But, in reality, I didn't have any friends that had kids that were smaller, or if I did, they lived further away. So it was a blessing that I met these magical motherfucking warriors, aka mamas, because we're all going through similar things. And it was, usually you're fortunate enough to meet one person, right, that you click with. But I met 3 women, 3 women that were magical and added so much to my life. And Candy is one of those people. And she gives so much. I've learned so much from her. I've been inspired by her. So this is a huge treat and an honor because this is her high season, as you will hear. And so I just want to say muchísimas gracias for her time. And you'll hear how amazing she is. And you'll get to see, I'll have links so you could see the amazing work that she does. If you're listening to this on Monday when it drops on Hallows Eve, then there's still time for some of the events that she does if you're in the LA area, because she's definitely part of what happens at Spark LA. And I'll have links to all of that stuff. So yes, don't forget, convo time, then Supernatural Bear Corner, then the outro. So yes, let's get into this. Candy, gracias for being here. You are busy. As we will get into it, this is busy times. So I really, 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 really appreciate you making the time to talk to me because, you're in thick of it. This is like your high season because of what the work that you do that we'll definitely get into. So I appreciate the time. I wanted to start off by saying, ¿Cómo estás? How are you doing today?
Awesome. I think, as I was starting to share with you a little bit earlier, I got to hear in the workshop some of the storytelling from some of the people, some of the folks that were coming through the workshop. And I feel that the most important work for me is listening to those stories and giving space to those stories. And so now when you ask me like how does my heart feel, how do I feel physically, even though my body might feel physically tired, I feel like my energy is like, it has been fed through these stories of today. And it just making me look forward to, tomorrow and the days that are coming forward.
Yes, we're recording this on the 29th, just for reference. So this is high season of the amazing work that you do for the community as far as, prepping rituals, workshops for Dia De Muertos. But other than that, how are you doing?
I love it, Ritzy. I'm doing good.
Yeah?
It's good. It's good. It was good. Yeah, it was good. Like I said, the storytelling was good. And overall it feels good. It's good times.
Okay.
Tiring times, but it's good.
Okay. So you're exhausted physically, but your soul is filled with the stuff that you need.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. We'll accept that. We'll accept that. Okay, so let's get into let the people know where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in León, Guanajuato, and I grew up in San Juan de los Lagos, Jalisco. And when I was 9, 10 years old, I migrated illegally to Santa Barbara, California. And I lived there until about 1998 when I transferred to Cal State Northridge, and I moved to another land. So since then, I've been out here in LA, and so this is where I reside now. Tongvaland.
Tongvaland, for sure. So when I ask people when they're gonna come on, what their title is, you put Artivist. So could you tell us what that means to you and what you hope, what that means and what that looks like for you?
Artivist is a combination of being an artist and being an activist. And I feel that a lot of my work is that, creating art as a collective through activism. And a lot of these cultural events that we're doing are, a form of resistance for social justice. So for me, that is key that, I continue to do this work. Art is healing. And so that is, I feel like, one of the most powerful tools. And throughout movements, whether it's been, the Chicano movement, the African American movement, the indigenous movement, all of these movements, we've seen artists, at the forefront of these movements. And I feel that they're so critical and it's so important, especially when we're incorporating, we're working with the community. Especially I like to work with younger generations because I feel like, they're more receptive to being able to embrace this type of work. And it gives us hope.
Yeah. I love that. That you've, taken this title and own it. It's not kind of like shyly or, kind of modestly, like I'm an activist, I guess. You're just like, no, I'm an activist. That's it. That's what I am. And it encompasses everything that you do. So I love that. So I wanted to ask you, how representation comes into play. How important is it that our histories and traditions are presented to us, to our communities, by people that are from the community?
I think it's key. We've lost our voices for so many thousands of years. And it's always a struggle to maintain representation because these are not welcoming spaces and you always got to push through. but so have our ancestors. They've survived and they keep on surviving through us. And so for me, when I speak for me, I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for my family. I'm speaking for my community. I'm speaking for the people that came before me. And I feel that when I think of that, that is so powerful. That is, just magical in a sense, because we're keeping it alive. And I feel that for me, when you present it, when you present your own cultures, your own traditions, to the community, they can be received in different ways, but there's so many more similarities than differences that I feel that when you're at the root of it, we are all human. We are all connected to Mother Earth and to the cosmos. And so for me, at the end of the day, that's what matters, is that, we're speaking from our heart, that we're speaking, that we're letting our ancestors speak through us, and to utilize us as tools more than anything to be able to accomplish this work. Because I feel, like I said earlier, these are acts of resistance, of survival, and especially in our society today, when it is so much easier to just start labeling people and start separating, divide and conquer, that this is where we truly need to be at the forefront of who we truly are, and who have left and paved the way, and I just kind of want to follow those footsteps. I feel that when I do that, doors open up for me, like you saw, amazingly. And one of the biggest things that I've been able to say is that, the ancestors do provide. There's not, in Mesoamerican traditions, we don't necessarily feel that death is, the reality. It's more like life is the dream. And when we die, we are actually awakened, and it's still that transition. And so for me, it's like, I'm only here for a little bit because I'm only dreaming, but I'm going to do as much as I can to be able to, connect with as many folks as possible. And I feel like I've been able to do that. Whether it's, 500 students or whether it's one person, it's been wonderful to be able to connect.
Yes.
And keep those traditions alive.
I love that. I love that what you said about here, when we're here right now, this is dreaming. That's beautiful. And I think you saw me repost this, but I don't think I had enough time to tell you that it reminded me of your work and the work of a lot of people that we are fortunate enough to know or be aware of in our communities that are doing this work. And it said, when we tell our stories, our ancestors and those we will never meet are smiling. That's I don't know if that's from someplace else, but this is from indigenous photographer artist Josue Rivas. He posted it on a reel when he's like taking these amazing photos of this indigenous woman. And I kept playing it, and then I was like, I have a thing in my notes app where I write down quotes, and that's the latest quote that I wrote down, because I feel like it's what we're all doing, right? Where we're all trying to do, especially in Black and Brown communities and other marginalized communities. And this is, we're saying, now fuck that. Not anymore. We are owning our histories and our stories. I don't think it's any accident or coincidence that these stories that people tried to hide for so many years are coming to light. Like in the last episode with Moni Vargas, the story she told, I had no idea. But because she documented and told the story, and I saw the photos and the videos, I was like, oh shit, and then there was pride, right? Because it's part of our history. It's part of our story. And then the Summer of Soul, like a whole fucking festival for multiple days happened in 1960 something. And we had no idea but because someone found the footage and said, we need to tell the story.
Yeah.
It's like helping us heal, right? It's like these stories are helping us heal. These altars, are helping us heal.
Yeah.
And these workshops and all the things that you do. So I just wanted to bring that up because you're reminding me, the things that you're saying, you're reminding me of this quote and how important it is for us to embrace this. And so I wanted to make that transition into, how did you even, did you consider yourself to be an artist as a kid? Did you see yourself doing this type of work? Like, how did you come into this type of work, and why, how did it lead up to you being, an Artivist and really being one of the main community leaders in this area that does altars? How did that come about?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I feel that, growing up in San Juan de los Lagos, it's a very religious town. We have a Virgen de San Juan de los Lagos. I went to an all-girl Catholic school. My family's very involved and supportive of the Catholic Church. And so that religious, spiritual aspect of me going with my grandma to church and walking over. So that ritual aspect, was since I was a kid, I feel, because going into mass, we were doing, las posadas, and that's like theater, but it's art, but it's, it's telling the story. And so I feel like, you automatically kind of grow up with a lot of these traditions that start that foundation. By the time I was in Santa Barbara 3 years later, because I arrived in entering 5th grade. By the time I was going into 7th grade, I met Louis Vega, who was a Chicano community activist back home in Santa Barbara. And he was our advisor in Mecha. And so, he connected us, the youth, with La Casa de la Raza, who is a cultural center as well in Santa Barbara, very well known. And in Santa Barbara, there's also so much history. That's where we have El Plan de Santa Barbara. So Chicanismo, El Movimiento started off there. And so the slogan was always, La Cultura Cura. And so for me, coming into this country, first of all, it's an illegal, and, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, that part was really difficult to kind of find pride in yourself and who you are, because automatically, you don't speak the language, you're less than, you're brown, you're less than, you socioeconomics, you're less than, specifically in Santa Barbara, which is, a community that you have the haves and the have-nots. Yeah. And so that was a transition going into being politically conscious about, what we were doing and what kind of work we were supporting in the community. And I felt a place that felt like home, that I felt accepted and welcome to. And I started then meeting other activists in the community. At that time, Armando Vallejo was the director of La Casa de la Raza, later Raquel. So all these, there has been so many amazing mentors that I've been able to be blessed to have in my path, that I feel like, automatically a lot of them have been artists and were activists. And I was like, this is what I want to do this for the rest of my life, because you also see, I saw the changes, not just in me, but I saw the changes in my family. I saw that my sister started getting involved in Ballet Folklórico. So by the time they were 5 years old, they started Ballet Folklórico en La Casa de la Raza. And so just seeing them grow and be proud of who they were and continuing these traditions was kind of like a confirmation that, the work that we were doing. And to this day, I have a colega who I'm working with at CSUN. She's also, we're collaborating with some of the ofrendas because she's the professora at CSUN, but, we went to high school together. And so she always tells me, like, she got involved, in Mecha because I stopped her one day and I started just chatting with her and like, you got to come to the meetings and we really need you. And so anyway, she started coming. And so now here we are 30 years later, and we're still doing the same work. She's now a ballet folklorico dance director, and she's a lecturer at CSUN with, Chicano studies. And so I seen this whole, going from seed to flowering, and now, to putting another seed to another young freshman. And so I see the benefits of it. And so it's been amazing. I don't know if I answered the question, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that
sign symbols and clues.
Symbols definitely. And clues. Sign symbols and clues. So definitely, what I've seen is that, my children have benefited. I've seen the growth in other children in the community, and that it inspires them. We have kids who have now been participating in some of these Dia de los Muertos events for the past 9-8 years. Wow. And so you see pictures of them being so little, helping out. And now you see them now, in high school or in middle school, and they're still helping, and they still feel, connected to these traditions, and they're happy to be there. Like they want to be there. And so that right there is kind of like really fulfilling, because it just says that we are doing the right type of work, and that we are, sembrando estas semillitas in a lot of these youth. And, they're our next generations. And that's why it's so key to start working with them and really start showing them all of these traditions.
I love that. And, just on a personal note, I started doing, small little altars here, and I started learning about it, I don't know how many years ago now, but it wasn't till you invited me to what you were doing at Spark LA, and to see it on a grand scale, but also to be there with to witness part of the ritual and hear the history. If you're in a place where you're isolated and you don't have people that are a part of your community and you have to do it alone, that's one thing. But it's something next level when you see it, and you see it done in community, in the way it was supposed to have been done, right? Like I had the honor and the privilege of being in Oaxaca for Dia de los Muertos by myself way, way back in the days. And I saw that and I was inspired. And since then I was like, oh, I want to do it here. But I never connected with others that were doing it, and I never saw it on this scale. So I'm here to say, if I never thanked you, thank you so much, because that was like a turning point. And then you were so wonderful to, to add my mom to this huge community altar. I mean, that was like special. It no pun intended, it sparked something.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, so muchísimas gracias, because you're doing it for me, and I'm older. I'm significantly older. So the fact that you've been doing this for, the younger generation, future ancestors, a past guest, the Yvonne that we both know because she did the bilingual meditation. I've had her on. I'll have a link to her episode también. She calls them future world changers. And I love that shit. I love it. I love that title, future world changers, because that's what they are. And, look at the stuff. Look at the shit that you're doing, Candy. Look at the shit that you're doing. Look when you were born, where you grew up, all the barriers and obstacles that you had before you, but you're still doing this. But imagine if we had what you're providing for these kids when we were growing up. Like how things would, like we would be fucking crazy next level, right? But we're still doing great. But I'm just saying, like, this is giving hope and like you said, planting the seeds. So now I want to get into the meat, to the nitty gritty of, what you do. Let's start off with this, because it's been a whole thing these past couple of days. I've got it from the people from in the house. I've got it from friends. And I've been using it different ways. Is it Dia de Muertos or is it Dia de los Muertos? Can it be interchanged? You're the expert. Let us know.
So Dia de Muertos is in Mexico and in other Latin American countries. Dia de los Muertos is here in the United States. And the reason is because of the translation. Once you translate it as Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. So either way, you would be okay with whichever label you would want to use it, but
yeah, because there's been arguments.
Most people here, and the interesting thing now is that, just in the last recent years is we're starting to now see a lot more commercialization of using Day of the Dead. It's not even anymore like in Spanish, Dia de los Muertos or Dia de Muertos. Now it's like Day of the Dead, and I feel like, and I'm sorry, I get like all passionate about these things, but this is when we're talking about, true representation, right? True, and here I would say is acculturation, right? Because now they're taking it and, we're starting to see a lot more different things happening with Dia de los Muertos. And I mean, it is also expected to see it develop and change because at the end of the day, we are a combination of so many different mixtures of cultures. And so things are gonna bound to change, when you put it out to the community as a collective, but I feel that if we continue to maintain that essence, I think that's what's key. And just kind of going back, it's the seeds that you were talking about for our younger generations, but I also feel that, you're right, whether it's older folks, it's about creating that space for people to actually process and for people to actually have that connection with, whether they've been old or young or it's been pets, whoever our loved ones is, but to be able to have that connection, because sometimes people might be like, well, I haven't lost anybody, but they've lost a pet. And, these are companions as well. So these are also family members, that, we can also tend to remember. But Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, or Dia de Muertos.
Yeah, because this is new to me within the last maybe couple of years, maybe the last year. Because I'm more around people from Mexico now. Yeah. I'm more in contact, on Twitter or DMs or Telegram and todo eso, and other Latin American countries. So it's Dia de Muertos. I was like, oh shit, am I saying? Are we saying it wrong? So it's just like, oh, what is the when to use it? So. Recently Nike came out with they actually put Dia de Muertos collection. They're pretty dope. But, a friend brought it to my attention. He was like, but they used it wrong. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, it said they put Dia de Muertos. I go, oh, well, actually, I just learned that you can use both. But I didn't know what was what. So I needed that clarification. Muchísimas gracias. Okay, so now this is a perfect time to go into the questions and comments from the audience. So going into, Dia de Muertos, going into altars and all this time, we have a couple of questions and from one person specifically. We'll start off with those, and I think I put them in a certain order. So what music do you listen to during that time when you're creating the altars and stuff like that for you personally? Like, what kind of music do you listen to?
COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too. If you feel symptoms, even if they're mild, you should test fast. Test positive and at high risk for severe COVID-19? Then act fast with authorized oral treatments that can be taken at home and must be taken within 5 days from when symptoms begin. COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too by asking your healthcare provider if an oral treatment is right for you. Learn about a treatment option at treatcv19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Many of us have heard of the devastating passing of Hurricane Fiona through Puerto Rico, but not many of us know of ways, or better yet, trustworthy ways to help and contribute to those in need. Fiona a través de los ojos de los niños is an NFT project featuring art made by children of the nonprofit school Flor de Loto in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Through their drawings, they've expressed their feelings and fears which they went through the hurricane. You can help these children, their school, families, and communities by minting one of their NFTs at helppr.xyz. You can also help by sending crypto directly to their wallet listed on the website or do a donation through PayPal. The The links can be found in the description. And to learn more about this initiative and how you can help, please visit helppr.xyz or via Twitter at helpprflm.
Ayuda a tus hijos y estudiantes a llegar más lejos. Aprende más sobre la beca nacional Hacer de McDonald's. Desde 1985, McDonald's ha otorgado más de $33 millones en becas. Gánate una beca de hasta $100,000. McDonald's está dando $500,000 en becas este año. Puedes ganar una de 30 becas. Hoy día, es importante seguir adelante y hacer más. A ayudar a estudiantes hispanos a hacer más que las generaciones anteriores. Hacer más de lo que se creen capaz. Hacer más de lo que pensaban que era posible. Por sí mismos, por su gente, por su cultura, por un mejor futuro. Para más información sobre la beca nacional Hacer de McDonald's, visita mcdonalds.com/hacer. Aprende más.
Festivals, football, flannels. Some say fall is their favorite time of year. And this fall, there are now updated COVID-19 booster shots designed to help protect against COVID-19 variants. If you've had your primary series, schedule an updated COVID-19 booster shot appointment as soon as you're eligible. And don't forget to enjoy the foliage. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
So I usually start off with songs so for example, I'm going to give you an example today. Today we were playing at the workshop. I usually start off with a song for Isaiah. So it's usually, Eres with Café Tacuba.
Yes.
And then usually after that, I'll start asking people that are there with me to give me their dedications and their songs. So that's, if nobody's with me, then that's it. For me today, we started off with Eres at the workshop, but once we got home and then we started kind of clearing out the space to make, so there's a difference also between an altar and an ofrenda. An ofrenda is once you have built it, it's an offering. And that's another question that a lot of the people ask is like, what's the correct word? Is it ofrenda? Is it altar? And what's the difference in between those two? But other than Café Tacuba, I'll definitely listen to the other music that my other family members used to like, Juan Gabriel, Rocío Dúrcal, so songs that other people who I love will also be listening. So as I'm creating, I'll be listening to the music that they would also be listening to, that I grew up listening to with them. Yes. And it just kind of gives me that connection. I was really hyped though. When was it? The day before yesterday. Yesterday, when we started off with Sin Miedo. And this was on my way into the library. And I just thought that was so powerful to be able to listen to that song as I'm entering, this structure, that has so much history. And so anyways, yeah.
Who's that by?
I'm sorry. The name of it, I think I mispronounced it.
Are you talking about the Ceci Bastida song?
Yeah, Ceci.
Oh, no tengas miedo. Yeah. How great is that song?
Yeah, it was like a cool little anthem to be able to walk in there in this space because, and I'll share with you one of the things that the library at CSUN and these structural spaces and institutions have had a long history, with Chicanos and marginalized communities and the way they've treated people. And so walking into that library, I knew that I wasn't just going to be taking a small little space to create an ofrenda. I was actually going to be taking some of the fence that was going to be around because now I'm claiming borders and what these fences. And it's because there's a fence that's linked on, they're doing construction, but it's still a fence, right? It's like, this is a safe place. That's not a safe place.
Yeah.
I'm really into Gloria Anzaldua's borderlands. And so for me, that whole concept of, reclaiming spaces, was powerful. So, I was going in We started putting papel picado outside on the fence. We took more space than we thought that, they had only given me like a small little space for the ofrenda. And by the time I left that day, I had already taken over the walls on the side of my ofrenda. I had taken over the middle of another wall in the library. So, it kind of, for me, it was like reclaiming these spaces as well. Not just for me, but for all the generations of other people who have come before me and who have done a lot of the work for us to be able to be at this university, for our, for Chicana studies to be able to be at that university. So for me, that was like, a real good anthem to start off. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that with me. It was, a perfect way to start it off. And I actually started sharing it with with like my other compañera who I was going to be meeting, Cindy. And I'm like, hey, play this before you walk in. So it wasn't just me, now we're bringing in a lot more folks with, that kind of energy into what we're creating.
I love that, man. And I love it because that song just came out yesterday. Ceci Bastida, she was on here last year, episode 38. I'll have a link to that, and I'll definitely have a link to her song. But I'm going to tell her what you said. That's going to make her day for sure. So the next question, and this question is by the first question, and this question is by Ozzy, founder of Hola Metaverso. The next one is, what role does, and I'm going to fuck this pronunciation. I even wrote it out. I'm still going to fuck it up. What role does the escuincle, is that how you say the dog?
Escuincle?
Escuincle.
Oh, okay. So he's talking about Xolotl.
He's like, what dog does escuincle, what role does escuincle dog play in Dia de los Muertos?
That's a really good question. So he's the one that is going to be our, kind of like our guide back into Mictla. Mictla is the land of the dead. And this goes back to the traditions of the journey to Mictla. And this is like the Mesoamerican aspect of, the traditions of Dia de los Muertos. And, what are all these things mean? Because everything in an ofrenda that you put has a symbol, has, a representation of something. And the dogs are supposed to be also one of the ones that are going to lead you, the candles and your companion, the dog. And back, in Mesoamerican times, they used to actually, you would also be getting buried with, your pet, because they're there to be your companion in this life and then in the next one. So they're very important.
That's awesome. So that was by Ozzy from Hola Metaverso. And speaking of Hola Metaverso, if you're listening to this on the day that it drops, Monday, November 1st, that means please make sure I have a link to listen to Candy. Is going to be one of our special guests. Where Jaritos and Hola Metaverso are doing a Twitter space, and she's going to be one of our special guests. It's Jaritos and Hola Metaverso present Dia de Muertos, Cultura Viva. And she's our expert that's going to be on there, and it's going to be her first Twitter space. She's going to do an amazing job. And if it's past November 2nd, the link will still work, so you can listen to the replay. Okay, so the next question. Please ask Miss Candy what kind of food and desserts we put on the altars, and that is by the Supernatural Bear.
I love it. Supernatural Bear. This is awesome. Thank you for asking this question, because it is I feel like one of the most important things that we put on an ofrenda is, the food that we're going to be putting for our loved ones. And so what we're going to put on the ofrenda is going to be their special foods. So depending on who you're honoring, for example, if it's like my grandfather, we would definitely have some cafe in it, and it's because we want him to feel welcome. So whatever particular food your loved one liked, or your pet, you provide that food for them, because you want them, to feel welcome, to feel that love, that you made something special for them. So it might be a sopita de fideo, it might be, the pan dulce that they might have liked. Other than that, the other kind of food that you're going to find is going to be the pan de muerto, and then that symbol that has a different symbolism. But other than that, it's whatever our loved one liked. and enjoyed.
And what is a pan de muerto for? Why is it there? What is the part of the ritual that it needs to be there?
So the pan de muerto is important because what you're going to see is that it represents earth, it represents life, it represents the bones, and different. And I feel that this is kind of an interesting question because it's one of the elements that it always goes on in ofrenda. Whether you're in Mexico or whether you're in Peru or, in other countries, and they have different kinds of breads also. And these are generations of families that have done this trade of, baking these particular breads during these particular times, specifically for our loved ones, in celebration of them. And they all have different meanings. In Oaxaca, you might find your pan de muerto not necessarily with bones and a lot of sugar. You might find it more in little shapes of animals. And that, that's a different representation, what different animal means. And every culture has that, in a sense. We would probably also see in Peru that you would find, a piece of bread that is more of a monito. So they look different than, you would think of a round bread. So, but bread is also very important, regardless of what country you're from, you're going to be able to find it because it has a lot of different symbolisms.
I love that that it's for, that we know now that it's for what it represents, that it's for the bones, kind of like the body, I guess, maybe.
Yes, it is.
Like the physical body. And then also you did this amazing presentation. We were fortunate enough to view it. You shared it with us. It was me and Cousin Peg. And I learned so much. So could you just kind of briefly just explain, because I should have done this early before I asked the questions, but just explain, what Dia de los Muertos is about, and then how you showed us how other Latin American, because everyone think, it's only a Mexican thing, but it's not just a Mexican thing. And also everyone celebrates it. The concept is kind of the same, but they celebrate it differently. And if you could kind of mention, I think what's an interesting one, I think was Guatemala, like how they are different from. So if you could go into that. Por favor.
Yeah, so in Guatemala, just across, at the end of the day, because this is an indigenous tradition, you're going to find it throughout Latin America. It wasn't until we were colonized that things started to change, and then it became, part of the Catholic embracing some of these traditions to be able to colonized, the traditions. For example, in Guatemala, one of the things that they do is they make papalotes. And so there are these huge kites that they make, they put prayers and then they put the names of their loved ones, and then they go up into the sky. And so the meaning is that, you're sending your good wishes, you're sending your good prayers up to the heavens. And so that's why you're sending up these beautiful kites. In other places they'll do the hot air kind of like lanterns, so different places do different things. But I feel that in Guatemala, specifically that town, it is just really beautiful just to see all these communities coming together and creating these huge masterpieces. I mean, it's just an amazing sight. I have never been to Guatemala for Dia de los Muertos. I've just been there to do some research, archaeological research at some of the ruins. But other than that, I have not been there.
When you showed us that was great. I was like, that's awesome to know that other Latin American countries do it, and they do it in their own way. And those kites were gorgeous. Okay, so let's keep going with some more questions and comments from the audience. Let's see here. Okay, the next one. Candy, to me, embodies the modern Renaissance woman. Beautiful, intellectual, and able to get down at the club. And this is by Janet, founder of Get Ready, LA, 'cause it's about to hit ya. Pizza Baby, Korean and Filipino pizza. She's part of the BOD and part of the Seed Crew.
That's right. Facts right there.
Okay, the next one. Activists in big and small ways every day, constantly tending community, honoring the history through ritual and practices of her ancestors, reminding us all to slow down and move with clarity and intention. That is from Kim, the OG We Reap crew, part of BOD and C crew.
Oh my gosh, I love it. These mujeres are poderosas.
And the final one, excuse me. Candy is a force. Her love, intuition, and strength are her superpowers.
Why are you guys making me cry?
Now you're making me cry. And she applies them generously to family, community, work, and friendship. She gives herself authentically as if there is no alternative. I receive with gratitude and I live in awe. This is from Liberty, another OG We Reap crew member, a BOD and a C crew member, all the way from New Zealand.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so amazing. You know, it is this type of energy that keeps you going, that keeps you grounded, that keeps on pushing you forward. And I feel that that's what, you know, you mujeres have been doing for me. And I'm just so grateful and blessed to be able to have this. And, you know, to some extent, like I said, you know, the ancestors do provide and they do open up, you know, like, who do you need, you know, and here you are, these powerful mujeres. You know, I really come back change every time I spend time with you ladies. You know, it's always a good time, and I am so blessed to have you in my life, and, you know, just to hear your wonderful words about me. I don't often think of myself that way, but just to be able to hear that you feel this way about me is just I'm just so grateful. You know, I'm so grateful. I feel like I'm so blessed. So thank you so much for all of your love and all of your wonderful words and support.
It's amazing. I got teary-eyed because we love you so much, Candy. And
love you guys too, ladies.
And I think the crew will agree, these amazing women will agree that, you know, we've known you now for, I don't know what, 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many years now, because, you know, where we met, I think I'll mention it in the intro. But it's always a beautiful thing to see someone that you've since jump believed in and saw all these things for, finally see it for themselves. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful fucking thing, because we've always known it since jump, you know? And to see you own it and allow yourself to be open for the ancestors to provide the way.
Yeah.
Because you are such a gift, Candy. You're such a gift to us, to your family, to the ancestors, to the community. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're providing so much without maybe not even seeing it. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's a beautiful thing. So muchísimas gracias for letting us be a part of your journey.
Thank you.
Okay. So now,
you know what I was going to say is, one of the important things I feel that this work is important is because there's 3 deaths. We talk about las tres muertes, right? So la primera muerte es cuando te mueres tú. And here I go into the Spanish, so I'm sorry.
No, do it. The Spanglish it up.
Okay, perfect. So la segunda muerte es cuando te entierran. Y la tercera muerte es la muerte que nunca quieres, porque esa es la muerte cuando te olvidas de esas personas. Entonces, para mí, eso es muy importante, no dejar la tercera muerte que pase on my watch, you know, y recordar a la comunidad que no podemos dejar que pase eso. Y por eso una de las razones también que se pone una vela extra. So, you know, for the forgotten soul. So you always, even if you're not necessarily conscious of somebody in particular, you know, but you know that somebody is, you know, or even when we call on our ancestors, you let them know, bring your friends. Tráiganse a los amigos. There's plenty here.
Plenty room. Pan de muerto for days. We got some cafe, like whatever, right here for days. I love that. And then I don't know if this is true because I saw it on Tip Top. Also for the lost souls or the souls that nobody remembers anymore. It said to leave some water out for them.
Yeah, the water is muy importante porque el agua es vida, right? So el agua representa when they come back and they're just arriving, and so they're thirsty because they've traveled this long journey from Mictla now, to this realm, and so they come back thirsty. And so if you put your glass of water, one day, and obviously you're going to see it less the next day that you go and you check on it, it is said that they did come and take, that little, agüita, that little bubble that you might see all of a sudden, go up. That was, an ancestor taking a little sip of that water. Obviously, it could be condensation and, all of these evaporation.
But we believe in the magic. We believe in the magic. So I love that. I love that so much. Okay, let's get into the Not So Rapid Fire questions, the AKA Slow as Hell questions. Are you ready, Candy?
Vámonos.
3 words to describe yourself.
Luchadora.
Sí.
Nepantlera.
Hell yeah. Tell the peaks. I just found out what this word means and I'm all about it now. So what is that word? Say it again, por favor, and tell us what it means.
So Nepantlera, and is somebody from Nepantla, and Nepantla is, a concept that Gloria Anzaldúa, and I think I was mentioning to you earlier that I'm all into, her theories and her frameworks. But it is a space that you're in between, that you're balancing from, that you're walking in between 2 spaces. And I feel that during this time of creating for Dia de los Muertos, it's kind of like we're walking in between those 2 spaces, but also being, even though I am Mexicana, I consider myself, a Chicana. And now a Latinx, embracing my younger generations, my daughter, Mr. Pickle here, who is like, I am not, you're not going to define me. I am going to choose my own identity. Yes. And so I feel that it has really been a place where I am able to step in and step out of, and I just kind of feel like it's embracing who I am, or in the spaces that I can walk from, being in this society, being, even on the west side of LA. Right. So it's just so many different components I feel that, it really embraces. And Nepantla. If you don't know what that is, please check it out. It's Neptla, Nepantla.
Yeah, I'm going to have it. I'm going to have the word. It's probably going to be in the title because I love it so much. Like as soon as you showed it to me, you told me about it yesterday and I looked it up. I was like, hell, fuck yeah. And it's so beautiful, right? Because English could be so limiting, but like there's words in other languages, especially Spanish and like Japanese and other things where it's like, one word can mean a whole phrase. It can mean a whole concept. It says so much in one word. In those letters says so much. It's an identity. It's a space within space. And I love how powerful language can be, but especially, if it's a indigenous word,
it's not what.
It's even like more powerful. It's like next levels of stuff, So, okay. So those are
indigenous. Claiming indigenous identity here. The other word I would just say is chingona, because
believe it.
I feel, this embraces a lot of us mujeres, that we have to, one way or another, life shapes us to be chingonas and to really, not just own, but really being able to handle a lot of our realities.
Love it. Okay, next. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? She's thinking.
to not to I guess that's a good one. That's a really good one. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine who was just also telling me, like, don't hold back, you know, just always trust your instinct. And I feel that, you know, to some extent, in the times that I do allow myself to trust my instincts, you know, things turn out the best way. And so I feel like that that is one of the things that I always, you know, have a hard time with, but at the same time, you know, it's something that I need to do.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, the next one. What is the song that you listen to get you hyped when you need it? She's thinking.
I know, I am thinking. Din, 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 din. There's so many different songs. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't be able to necessarily pick one. I like also Madly. So a lot of the times, you know, if I listen to them, they'll be able to like hype me up. Just because they bring back always really good memories. You know, they're a great band to see them live. And so I kind of feel like, and they're a band of the people for the people. So, you know, it just embraces so many different things. And so that's, you know, they have so many awesome songs, but that's like one of the CDs that I would be bumping, you know, in my car if I'm like.
What's your favorite Ozone Madly song?
No, I don't want to just choose one.
Well, I want to add one to the playlist, so I can only add one.
Ooh. Let me see what I have right here. If you give me a few seconds.
Sí.
You're like, no, Candy, hubiera sabido esto. Ponte las pilas. That's another one, right? Ponte las pilas.
No worries. And just like FYI, I saw today that they have a Tip Top account, aka TikTok account now.
Wow, they're coming up, huh? I feel like I'm so old school. I don't know how people keep up with all of these social media. How do you do it, Ritzy?
I don't know, actually. I don't know how I do it. Well, if you can't think of one, then, you know, you can tell me later and we'll add it to the playlist. And as always, we'll have a link in the show notes to the Word to Your Mama guest hype song playlist. It'll be the first time Ozone Madly has been added, for sure.
What?
Yeah, no one's added Ozone Madly. No, this is the first timers.
What?
Shout out Ozone Madly.
You know, so then we got to do Cumbia de los Muertos.
Okay.
If that's cool, because that's just gonna go with, you know, my theme.
Totally.
Okay, perfect.
Totally.
Yeah, because they have some really good ones, you know. And I guess so. One of my defaults, I guess now here I'm gonna say is like I am indecisive because I'm like, there's so many good ones. I have to make a decision right now. Which one is it? So it would probably be Cumbia de los Muertos. But other than that, they have a lot of really good songs.
Yeah, they are fun. I haven't seen them in forever, but they remind me of when I first moved to LA from Long Beach and saw them live, and I was like, "What is this? This is amazing!" And da da da. So it does bring back really good memories. That's when I was like heavy in the activist scene, and that's how I got to, you know, see them and meet them and do all that stuff. Okay, final question, Candy. What will be your legacy? She's thinking.
I think my legacy would be that I am creating these spaces through art, you know, for social justice. And I feel that you know, Dia de los Muertos is obviously a beautiful tradition that we're able to do that through, but overall, you know, being able to make powerful impacts in our communities, bringing people together. I feel that this is going to be one of my legacies that will continue. I feel, you know, with my children, because if anything, that's one of the things that I really try to, you know, encourage in them to be able to be involved in the community and give back to the community. But obviously take care of themselves, you know, because that's also key.
Yeah, I love that. So, you know, tell the people, you know, what you have going on, how they can reach you, and also if anyone out there is thinking, I want to make my first altar ofrenda ever, what are like what must-haves do you have to have on there? Like, you know, you at least have this for starter, like Dia De Muertos starter kit.
Yeah. And they actually have those. Can you believe that?
I know. It's crazy times. It's crazy times.
Yeah,
At Target, they have them at Target.
So it's been interesting. But I think, you know, the most important thing is that if you have the person's photograph, if you don't have their photograph, because a lot of the times we might have lost even those photographs, right? Having the name of that person and then making something for them that has your essence, whether, you know, it's like we said, a paper flower, whether it's, you know, a little nicho, whether it's, you know, whatever it is that you create with your hands. By doing that, you're actually creating that offering, because you're giving that, whatever you're creating is you're giving that essence to it. You know, obviously, part of the altar would be, you know, to have their candle and, but mainly you want to have their photos, you want to give them the light, you want to have, you know, that, if you really, you know, want to have the 4 elements, then you'll have, the pan de muerto, you'll have the marigold and the simpalsuchi that has, you know, a whole symbolism as well. The candle, the water, those are like the basics. And then something that they liked, you know, whether it was, you know, a Coca-Cola, like I said, or, you know, a coffee or, you know, and I'm sorry, I'm here dropping brands, but I'm not trying to do that.
No, it's okay.
But, you know.
What is the significance of the marigolds? Like, why marigolds?
So marigolds are a Mesoamerican flower, and cempasúchil means flower of many petals, and usually or flower of 20 petals and more. You know, so it is also representative in the altar because of the smell, because of, you know, it calls on to the spirits. And that's why you make a little trail for them to follow it, because it also lights up the way. So it does several things, but it also represents, you know, the earth, because it's coming from the earth. It represents the human, because back in Mesoamerican times, you know, a human was also a symbolism of, you know, the marigolds in those traditions back in the days. So there's different significance of the marigolds, but, you know, overall, I feel that there's that aspect that is connecting us to one of the native plants, you know, that we originally had, that we continue to still have to this day. And it's also that part of that resistance, right? That you're going to continue to have that. So that would be the marigolds and the significance of them. There's obviously a lot more, you know, information on it.
I love that. And also, kids, let me just let you know that the Supernatural Bear and I went to Trader Joe's last week, and they now have marigolds. Okay.
Yes, they do. $7.99.
Yeah. So
I'm not trying to give prices here, but I saw them too, and I was like, okay, you know, I mean, but you know, Trader Joe's also started having those calacas, right? The sugar skull planters that they've been having, and you know, people. I mean, everybody is, you know, banking on it. That's capitalism, you know, and so
that's why I was like, oh shit, it's mainstream. For reals, if Trader Joe's has the marigolds. Remember back in the day, like, oh, I have to go to the callejones, to the flower area to get them. It was tough to get them. And now I can go to Trader Joe's. It's crazy. It's like good and bad. It's weird. But anyways, Candy.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Ritzy, for the opportunity, for really opening these doors for me. I am forever grateful. I feel that this is a wonderful opportunity, not just for me, but for many folks who are actually creating these ofrendas in the community, not just, you know, myself, but there's a lot of us that are trying to keep these traditions alive. And I feel that it's important to showcase them because we're not just helping ourselves and our community, we're helping society overall, you know. Dia de Muertos is a healing healing is a collective, giving that
Yes.
opportunity to create that sacred space and to be able to heal as a collective. And, just kind of going back to what I had said before, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all, made out of bones and dust. And so it's, we're gonna return to Mikla.
Yes, we are. Well, muchísimas gracias, Candy. You're super fucking busy. And so thank you so much for carving some time out. I know you're super tired and you got to do it all over again tomorrow. So muchísimas gracias for what you do, for being part of my familia, and for,
Igualmente.
for sharing
Gracias
your
a ti.
time. So muchísimas gracias. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And now introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner. Supernatural Bear.
Hello everyone, it is the Supernatural Bear live at 10:27 a.m. In my robe because it's really cold. So anyway, so today we are going to be talking about Dia de los Muertos. And by the way, shout out to the anonymous shouter and what was it? Oh yeah, that scientist. Shout out to them. They're my friends, by the way. Miss Candy's children. So we're talking about Dia de Muertos, Dia de los Muertos. Both of those ways are correct, by the way. So if someone says Dia de Muertos, don't come like trying to correct them and starting Twitter controversy again. So for me, I absolutely love making altars. And especially like we make homemade flowers, not like grow them because allergies exist, but we make them out of, what was it? We make them out of like that weird thin like confetti like paper, right? Like that, I believe. And we're gonna put the altar up today. If you're watching this at exactly midnight on Sunday, then, well, we put up the altar, or anywhere else after that, after this episode gets released. So, I wanted to also say that we honor a lot of people. One of my grandpas, one of my bleep this out, please. The friend's family member, yes, a friend's family member, one of my best friend's family member, and a lot more people in there that we honor, and we have a skeleton. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Frida. I don't think so, but it's an old Dia de Muertos skeleton Funko Pop that we have, and it's really awesome. So, oh, by the way, I also love the food, because I'm a huge food guy. Like, I cook sometimes, I make a lot of snacks, like, food. I love food. It's coming from a guy that just ate 30 minutes ago. So yeah, that's what Dia de Muertos means to me. It's I love that we get to honor those who have passed, even though it's really, really sad that they have passed. It is also really, really nice. It is also really, really nice to honor those who have passed, and sometimes you even feel like they're back. I mean, not like you wish they're back, because I'm pretty sure everyone wishes, a passed away family member is back most of the time, unless they treated you terribly or something. But, I love, like, not that you feel like they're back, but you feel like they're in a spiritual way with you. even more than usual. And yeah, I love the traditions, I love the food, I love everything about it. Yeah, and then we also leave out water, like a bowl of water for all the souls whose families and friends and things never don't remember them anymore. Like, they don't talk about them. 'Cause they say that a person has two deaths. One where their physical body stops working, and the second one when someone says your name for the last time and then forgets about you. And I made the argument that a lot of the slaves of people of color, a lot of them probably died and no one cared about them because they were slaves. There were probably a lot of them that were born as slaves and died as slaves, doing a lot of heavy working jobs, like a lot of jobs. And then the people who enslaved them, they just don't care, and the slaves don't get to properly mourn. The rest of the slaves' families don't get to properly mourn because they have to do dirty work or else they'll die anyway. So we leave out water for everyone who's been forgotten, that hasn't been remembered. And yeah, that's what we do for Dia De Muertos. And I'll see you guys next week, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, next week. So yeah, see you guys soon. Bye.
Shoo-be-doo. Yeah. There you have it, folks. Episode 103 of Word to Your Mother with Candy Angel-Diaz. Powerful. When you see someone happy getting their flowers and see how much work they put in and how, just things are happening for them, you get so happy. And then when she started tearing up, then I started tearing up. As you could tell, I was having a little issue trying to read the last one from Liberty, but it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. So don't forget, there'll be links to all the things that we discussed in the show notes. And if you heard the Supernatural Bear Corner, this morning early in the morning, he came in and he said, we're talking about altars and putting it up today. And because we homeschool, we've been homeschooling pre-pandemic. And it's very important that, if there's certain things that I don't feel as strongly or comfortable or as well versed in to teach them, that I want it to come from others that's what they do, right? So he brought up that point this morning about leaving the water out for lost souls or those that don't have anyone to remember, to keep their memory alive. And then he mentioned about the slaves. And I love that he's thinking like that, because, that's a beautiful thing now that we can always, it could be part of our tradition, part of the ritual, the tradition that, this is why we do this, but also because the Supernatural Bear is part African American, he's part Black. And so that's why I feel like it was very important for him to when he was, old enough to really understand and grasp. And when we went into that subject, that part of history, that part of his history, that we wanted it to be well-rounded, true, and stuff like that. So right now, on Sundays, he takes Black history from a decolonized perspective. So it's African American history, and it's taught by an amazing Black woman. Her name is Miss Iman. And so he's been getting, he's like kind of already advanced anyways, but I think this was the perfect time for him to do that. So the fact that he's thinking like that and that he was able to incorporate it and bring it into this tradition, it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, so, I think there's been a definitely a commercialization, as Candy mentioned, of Dia de Muertos, because of, especially after when Coco came out, right? But I was fortunate enough to go to Oaxaca alone. It was my first and only trip that I took alone. I was there for 16 days. This was like early 2000s, way before the Supernatural Bear was born. I think I was still working at House of Blues concerts. And I went by myself. I stayed with the family. And I took Spanish. I took cooking from this abuelita. Shit was amazing. And then I also had an intercambio. It was an exchange kind of with a student that was there. So he could practice English and I can practice Spanish. It was a magical, magical thing because I was there for Dia De Muertos. And it really changed my life. And then when Coco came out, I was like, yep, that's how it is. It was... So I was taking this Spanish class. It was like me and 3 white people. And it was like some advanced, they test you in. And, it was, I think, the 31st. And the building is this gorgeous, like old colonial building. And it had like the beautiful old school windows. And the instructor was telling us, the history of Dia de Muertos and how leading up to Dia de Muertos, there's each day is for different types of souls, different kinds of souls that are coming back into town, back to the people's altars of those that remember them. And I swear to fucking the lords and dragons above, she was telling us, and on that day, I believe on the 31st are like the children's souls or those children that have been, murdered or something like that, some tragic deaths. And as she's telling us, like, it's a warm day, it's a warm day. We have the windows open. It's a warm day. And as she's telling us about the souls coming in, and then she's like, yes, and you can feel, cold, cool breezes coming in, and those are the souls. I swear to the lords and dragons above, a cool breeze came in. We were like, what the fuck? So that was one of the things. Another thing is that we went to the comparsas in Itla, which is one of the towns in Oaxaca. And it's basically kind of like parades for Dia de Muertos, but it's in like a residential area. And people are in costumes, people are not in costumes, people have instruments, and you're just going along, like processions of people, and you're just like adding on, just filing in, joining the party. And then this is probably, maybe it's not, maybe it's still happening now, but I'm sure during COVID it wasn't happening, but you go to different people's houses. A group of us, like it was a group of us, and we're like, with the, banging things and singing, and you go to someone's house, and then they bring out their like moonshine homemade mezcal, because mezcal, you drink it to get onto a higher frequency so that you can connect and see the those that are coming back. And it was just, I was there and I was just like, this is amazing. And then we go to the cemeteries, right? And there's like food stands all up in the front, the families at their plots with, food and drinks, and you just hear laughing and just, it's a beautiful thing to witness. So, it's very special to me on so many different levels. So to have Candy on and talk about traditions and what people do in other Latin American countries and the symbolism for all the different things, it's special all around. So I hope you guys are having or had an amazing Hallows Eve. If this is your first or 20th time putting an altar together, let us know. I would love to see pictures, videos, or anything of what you're doing. And remember, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a grand scale. It's just, something to remember your loved ones by. So, yes. And always, there's all the ways, I'm not going to get into it, this one, of how you can support us. Thank you so much for those who have been supporting since day one, or those who just started supporting. And, the free way is tell your peeps, tell your folks, tell your friends. And as always, we reap.
Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Intro beat produced by Nico Beats.
If you want to know more, you want to email us, you want to get the media kit, go head over to wordtoyourmama.com. Word to Your Mama is now part of the Latina Podcasters Network. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by RitzPeriwinkle.com.